Okay, I pushed the wrong button there, so I'm just going to continue. Um, so Hamlet says, he says he has my dying voice, which means like I'd vote for him, which is crazy. Like Hamlet doesn't like Fortinbras. Hamlet thinks Fortinbras is a lunatic who goes to war for no reason and is a terrible fucking person because he just gets all these people killed for fucking nothing. And Hamlet says, "Nah, I'd vote for him." It's like his dying words. He has my dying voice, meaning my vote, and I'll vote. I'll vote for him. Um, and then Hamlet says the very last words in the play. He says, "Tell him with the occurrence more or less which has solicited," meaning tell him what happened. Notice that Hamlet asks 3 times. He says, "Report me and my cause aright to the unsatisfied." And then Horatio's like, "No way, I'm going to kill myself." And he says, "No, you got to stay alive. And in this harsh world, draw breath and pain to tell my story." And then Fortinbras shows up. And Hamlet says, "Well, fuck it, I'd vote for him, even though he hates him." He's kidding, I think. And he says, again, 3rd time, "So tell him with the occurrence more and less which has solicited." You got to tell him what happened. And the rest is silence. That's the last word Hamlet speaks in the whole play. And then Horatio says, now, very famous, "Now cracks a noble heart. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest." Enter Fortinbras. Do you see how this is funny? Shakespeare did it again. Do you remember when Fortinbras was talking to the captain, and then Fortinbras left the captain, and then Hamlet immediately showed up to talk to the captain, and Fortinbras and Hamlet missed each other by like that much? Same thing here. These guys that are so similar must have so much to say to each other, and they don't. They don't get a chance to even talk. And then once again, the exact same thing happens here. Sorry. The exact same thing happens here, which is that Hamlet and Fortinbras could have had a nice conversation, and they just missed each other. Again, even though they're so similar, I would love to have seen what a conversation would go. So Fortinbras shows up, and he says, "Where is this sight?" I mean, like, what is going on? And Horatio says, "What is it you would see if aught of woe or wonder cease your search? You want to see something crazy? You got it." Fortinbras says, "This quarry cries on havoc," meaning like this is like hunting. There's like a pile. The quarry's like a pile of dead deer. He just feels like it's like hunting, but instead of a pile of dead deer, it's a pile of royalty. He says, "O proud death, what feast is toward in thine eternal cell that thou so many princes at a shot so bloodily hast struck?" Like all these dead rich people. And the ambassador from England says, "The sight is dismal, and our affairs from England come too late." Right? I was supposed to give good news. "The ears are senseless that should give us hearing to tell him his commandment is fulfilled, that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Where should we have our thanks?" So he's like, "This is so bad that we were coming to say we did what you said and killed Rosencrantz and Guildenstern." He never said that. Hamlet changed the letter. But they don't know that. So it's just this, all this goofy shit happens where like everybody shows up at the exact same time, and Hamlet dies a split second before meeting Fortinbras and is like, "Fuck it, I'll vote for him," even though he thinks Fortinbras is terrible. And Horatio tries to make clear up these misunderstandings. And Horatio says, "Not from his mouth had it the ability of life to thank you. He never gave commandment for their death. But since, so jump upon this bloody question, you from the Polack wars," that's Fortinbras, "and you from England, the ambassadors, are here arrived, give order that these bodies be placed upon a stage," he says. He says, "Have these Horatio's," and we're on the last page now. This is the very final page. And Horatio says, "Let's give an order that these bodies be placed upon a stage, high into the view. And let me speak to the yet unknowing world how these things came about. Let me speak. Let me say what happened. So shall you hear of carnal, bloody, and unnatural." This is a summary of the play. "Carnal, bloody, and unnatural acts of accidental judgments, casual slaughters of deaths put on by cunning and forced cause. And in this upshot, purposes mistook fallen on the inventor's head." It's just a summary. "All this can I truly deliver." Right? And Fortinbras says, "Let us haste to hear it," meaning I want to hear what really happened. And then you get this. He says, "And call the noblest to the audience." I mean, we're gonna, all the famous people are gonna come, all the important people are gonna come hear your story, Horatio. "For me, with sorrow I embrace my fortune. I have some rights of memory in this kingdom, which now to claim my vantage doth invite me." Rights of memory means that he's like sort of distantly related, because these rich people are all, kings are all related to each other in this area. And so he says, basically, since you guys are all dead, I'm king now. Remember, he just showed up with an army, so he can say whatever he wants. I guess I'm the king now. Who's going to disagree with him? Like, all the royalty are dead. There's nobody to command the army. And Fortinbras is like, "Well, I'm alive. I'm taking over." He says, I guess I'm the king now. And he makes it sound polite, like, "I guess I'm the king now." But, like, remember, he didn't show up by himself. He showed up with a pile of soldiers. So, like, who's going to tell him, "No, you're not"? Anybody who says that's getting killed. And he says, with sorrow I embraced my fortune. What are you talking about with sorrow? Like, you wanted all these people dead, and they killed each other. The whole joke is that Fortinbras showed up to kill these people, and they killed each other. And he just takes over he takes over without having to kill anybody in Denmark. It's funny, it's ridiculous, it's crazy, it's a bonkers ending. And then you get this. He says, he says, I have some rights of memory in this kingdom, which now to claim my vantage doth invite me. I mean, like, I'm the king now. Horatio says, of that I have also cause to speak. Now, I don't exactly know. You got to think Horatio probably doesn't like Fortinbras and thinks that's a bad idea. But again, who's going to stop him? Fortinbras showed up with an army, and all the people who command the army fucking dead. Right? The prince, the king, the queen, they're all dead. And Horatio says, but let this same be presently performed, even while men's minds are wild, lest more mischance on plots and errors happen. He says again, like, we got to tell the people what really happened, lest more mischance of plots and errors happen. We got to really clear this up with everybody, because this is a mess. And now we're at the very final words of the play, and they are amazing. If you've been in the theater for 4 hours, these last words, you just like, oh, you're like already packing your bag up, ready to go to the car, because it's a long fucking play. But you really have to pay attention to the Fortinbras plot to understand why this is such a wacky ending. Fortinbras says, let four captains. Notice that Fortinbras, by the way, gets the last word, which is crazy, because he just took over and is barely in the play. Let 4 captains bear Hamlet like a soldier to the stage. What? Let 4 captains bear Hamlet like a soldier? Was Hamlet a soldier? He was kind of the opposite of a soldier. Soldiers are men of action. Hamlet was a philosopher. But Fortinbras says let's bear him like a soldier. They're going to give him a military funeral. Remember in the movie they do like a 21-gun salute? But remember Hamlet said 3 times to Horatio, make sure my story gets accurately. And Horatio says twice to Fortinbras, we have to tell people what happened lest there's more trouble. I have to clear up all of this misunderstandings. And Fortinbras says, I guess I'm in charge of the country now. Who's going to stop me? And he says, you know what? Let's give Hamlet a big military funeral since he was such a great soldier. That's not fucking true. Hamlet's last request was to tell his story accurately, and the first thing Fortinbras does as king is he tells it inaccurately. He says, let's give him a soldier's funeral. Hamlet was not a soldier. He didn't even like soldiers. He didn't like Fortinbras at all. And then you get this. He says, for he was likely, had he been put on, to have proved most royal, and for his passage the soldiers' music and rights of war speak loudly for him. He was likely, had he been put on, to prove most royal, meaning if he had been king, he would have made a great king. No, he fucking wouldn't have. Would have been a terrible goddamn king. Hamlet would have been the worst king. He just would have spent all day thinking about shit, not doing anything, and the whole country would have been destroyed. So Hamlet asks Horatio 3 times to tell the story accurately, and Horatio says to Fortinbras twice, I got to tell this story and clear up all these misunderstandings, and we got to tell everybody the truth. And Fortinbras says, guess I'm the king now. Hamlet was a great soldier. He would have been a great king. Lies. Fortinbras starts off with lies and misunderstandings. He just doesn't care. He's in charge now. He gets to decide. And that's how the play ends. It's funny and crazy. Take up the bodies. Such a sight as this becomes the field, meaning like hunters, but here shows much amiss. Go bid the soldiers shoot. Now that line, go bid the soldiers shoot, really has one clear meaning, which is give a 21 guns military salute to Hamlet. Again, ironically, a very inappropriate tribute to Hamlet, who was not a man of violence, but really a thinker. And that's the end of the play, and it's funny, and it's bonkers, and it's ridiculous. And again, I gave you this whole lesson to emphasize you got to pay attention to the words in the page. Now, I will also say that there was this, in Shakespeare in the Park, they did Hamlet years ago, and they had a controversial ending. Go bid the soldiers shoot is the last line of the play, and it almost certainly means give a 21-gun salute to Hamlet, because he was a great soldier, which is not fucking true. But in New York City, they did a controversial thing. Fortinbras says, he was a soldier, he would have been a great king. He said, such a sight as this becomes the field, but here shows much amiss. And normally he tells all his guys, go bid the soldiers shoot, and they all go give a 21-gun salute to Hamlet in the plains. But in the New York City version, 10 years ago, they did something real controversial. Instead of saying, Fortinbras, go bid the soldiers shoot to all of his soldiers, telling them how to handle the funeral for Hamlet, he walked over to the captain and whispered to him, go bid the soldiers shoot. And a soldier walks up to Horatio, puts a gun to Horatio's head, shoots Horatio. Horatio dies, curtain falls, end of play. And everybody was like, oh shit, that's not the ending. That's a bullshit ending. That's not what Shakespeare meant. But I kind of love it. The idea that the last line of the play is to have Horatio shot. Because the whole people will miss the end of this play. But the end of the play is Horatio says, I got to tell this story accurately. And Fortinbras is like, no, we're telling it my way. I say he would have been a great king and a great soldier, and I'm king now. I don't think Fortinbras is going to be a very good king, and I don't think Horatio is going to do very well in this kingdom. But because most people will miss that, it's more dramatic, but it makes the same point, which is that Horatio is screwed and no one cares what he thinks. And that's in the play. You can see it if you pay attention to the words on the page, that Horatio is screwed and no one's going to listen to the true story of this. No one's ever going to hear Hamlet's story the right way in the kingdom, because Fortinbras is a tyrant, and he's going to tell the story his way. Winners get to write the story. And so shooting Horatio in the head at the end of the play is kind of perfect, because it's very much about power. And you'll miss that if you don't pay attention to all the words on the page. And that is the end of the Fortinbras plot. Sorry there were too many videos here. I'll try to do less later. Okay, bye.